In the negative episodes, we discuss random topics, and today we'll be talking about why bedrooms are on the top floors of buildings.
I'm Keegan Guidolin.
I'm Mackie Drew.
I'm Connor Doherty.
I'm Desiree Malone.
All right, so let's get started off. Why are bedrooms on the top floor of buildings?
All right, well, we'll talk about a few ideas. I suppose the first is that it is warmer up there.
Interesting. Why is that a benefit?
Well, I think it's a benefit because if you're sleeping, you don't want to be cold, right? That's the reason you have covers in your bed.
But what about in places with, hotter temperatures at night?
I don't think that they do have bedrooms on the top floors.
See, I think one thing that is important here is we have to think about when bedrooms were put on the top floors. And before, say, the 1950s, most houses were only one level. So
Is that the case?
I disagree.
Even in...
There was Tudors and stuff.
Yeah.
But like nowadays, the average house is 2 stories, where in the past the average house was 1.
But let's go back even further. What about like
How much further?
medieval times? Was
Huts.
huts, but
Huts on huts.
Castles.
was castles. Didn't they have bedrooms on upper floors as opposed to the ground floor?
They kept the princesses in the top of spires.
Are you sure you're not? Are you sure you're not making conclusions based on Disney movies?
No.
That's the best thing to make conclusions based on.
I think another important factor here is that about expansion. So, say you're a pioneer family and you've just come to Canada for some reason, and you're like, "Well, we're going to build a house." So you build a house. You got one room in this house. It's the kitchen, the bathroom, etc.
Well, the bathroom probably wasn't in the house.
I don't know. In the corner.
And they probably also didn't have a top floor unless they were rather wealthy.
That's what I'm saying. So they build the house, then they keep building on the house. They build expansions, and then they build up.
Hang on, though. Do you really think that house that you built, like, if you're a pioneer, presumably out of, like, logs and stuff, would be sturdy enough to add a second story
Well,
to?
I'm assuming they're building it out of mud, and you can build a house on mud.
Can you build a 2-story house out of mud?
You can build a 1-story house on mud, but if the second story is a basement, kind of, then you could work that out, right?
That doesn't really count.
See, I'm seeing that after the 1950s, people decided they wanted bigger everything. They got 2-car garages and whatnot, and then when they got a bigger house, they had a second floor. They needed something to put on that second floor, and the obvious choice was a bedroom. I mean,
Why
your
is it
kitchen.
why is it an obvious choice?
Well, because when you're having guests come over, you want them to come in, and then they can come sit in the living room. They can go in the kitchen, and you can have the dining room, and that's where people come and congregate.
See, I like
and
that
the
idea.
bedroom is upstairs and private.
Yeah. I think that privacy is a big issue. I don't know. What do you think, Desiree?
Asshole.
Well
Put me on the
said.
spot.
Well...
I have nothing to contribute to this conversation other than I can build 2-story houses out of mud in Minecraft.
Okay.
Can't we all?
But yeah, I like that idea about the privacy thing. I have a feeling that might be the case, but I don't know.
I
How
think
was
it's
it
the odd man.
beforehand?
I think it's the odd man out. It's the only room that's just for you, and it's a matter of, for instance, think about kitchens, bathrooms, things that actually have a very useful function that interact with the like inputs and outputs for the house. Plumbing and whatnot. Those are very important. They need plumbing to function. A bedroom is just a room. You can put that anywhere, and putting plumbing and waste removal on the main floor is much easier than putting it on a top floor.
And if you have to put something upstairs, it's going to be the bedroom.
Why though?
That's why I figured. Because what Mackie just
It's
said.
the odd man out.
Yeah.
You aren't going to have guests in your bedroom unless you're having a really fun time. But you're going to be having guests in a living room or a kitchen, and they'll probably want to use the bathroom at some point, whether it's an outhouse, a corner, etc.
That's interesting. What about issues with... Didn't we discuss issues with, like, fires? Something like that? You want the things that are more susceptible to fire on the bottom floor, something like that?
What would that be?
No, if anything, you'd want your bedroom on the bottom level, so if you wake up to a fire, you don't have to jump out a window.
Now, I think that's BS, because I think when we're talking, what we're talking about now is what we're talking about now is like kind of old times, because we can build whatever we want now, and it doesn't really matter. We have bottom floors and top floors for apartments. Those are already 70 stories up, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, I'm not
But
saying
for-
they're designed with this in mind, but if you had to pick a room to be on the top floor, the bedroom would be
Well, I think
worse
that's-
in the case of a fire.
Okay, I don't think that's really the case, because I think the fire risk is probably in the kitchen, where you have the fire. But for these smaller houses, a second story isn't that high. You could jump and you'd be fine.
Yeah, that's
I don't think it's too big of an issue, unless you're like an old, crippled person.
But
But
if
they didn't exist back then anyway. They all died of polio.
So the fire is going to start in the kitchen, where you have the heat source. But if you're in the kitchen, you're awake. And when the fire starts in the kitchen, you're awake. You can either put it out, or you can easily walk out the door, if it's too big. If you're asleep, though, in your bedroom, and the fire has now consumed your kitchen, and then has woken you because it's so large of a fire, you have to jump out the window, as opposed to walking out.
So why wouldn't you put your bedroom on the main floor and your kitchen on the top floor?
That's why I'm
Because
saying
fire
it's the worst
burns-
place.
Well, we already talked about
right?
this. The kitchen has to be on the main floor because of plumbing.
You're asserting that.
And also,
We're just
like,
guessing.
you're constantly bringing goods into your kitchen from the outside. It's more convenient
Yeah.
that you don't have to
That's
walk
fair.
up the stairs
That's fair.
to fill your fridge.
Do you think it has anything to do with, the privacy of having like the windows up top, or maybe the height having a part of it? Maybe it lends
Some sort of separation.
security
But then,
of some
like,
kind.
that security is lost once one of your neighbors also has a second floor and blinds exist.
All right. Well, what about safety from like wild animals?
Well,
or
I
something
don't.
like
I
that?
feel like
You want to raise yourself above ground level where there's.
I feel like I'm separated from the world when I'm on a top floor or in the basement, for instance.
I was thinking it could be safety related. Like, if a burglar breaks into your house, you have more time to hear them since you're upstairs than
Well,
if
what
your
about less
bedroom's
practically than that?
right next to the front door.
That's true, but what about from a less practical aspect, like less forethought?
Oh, I
Yeah, why?
doubt there was too much forethought
Why did it
into this.
happen the way it did? Because you could easily put a bedroom on the main floor. It happens all the time,
It still does.
but most of the time it's on the top floor. And why did that happen?
Because it's the odd man out. Like you said. It's
Lowest priority.
there's nothing else to put up there, and it just lends to the privacy issue. It's the less
What's
necessary for company.
that? Connor, you probably know this. What's that triangle? The needs triangle.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
It's not a triangle. That's like a hierarchy.
Pyramid.
It's a pyramid.
Yeah.
A
Like a
pyramid.
food
Yeah,
pyramid.
but it's a two-dimensional pyramid, aka triangle.
Yeah.
All right. So, regardless, the food and the waste removal is lower on the higher. Lower?
Yeah, it's the lowest
lowest than the second tier, which would have shelter, right? Or
No, I think shelter's
shelters
also in the
first.
lowest tier.
Oh, never mind. Then. Okay, there
In
goes that.
Maslow's hierarchy, he doesn't really deal with waste management.
Well, I assume that it should be dealt with. It's kind of mandatory.
Oh.
Sex, though, is the third level, and that happens in the bedroom.
There you go. I'm right.
But you also shelter yourself in the bedroom. That's the first level.
Yeah, but you shelter yourself in the house too.
Yeah, you can shelter yourself on the first floor.
Do you feel more secure in your bed, cozy up at night, or in like the living room on the main floor?
Living room on the main floor.
I think you're full of crap.
I don't really feel unsecure.
I'm
in my
saying-
house.
I'm saying
Also, I
bedroom.
live in an apartment, so
Oh, right.
all one level.
I when my shoulders are warm, I feel safe, and my shoulders are not warm anywhere but my bedroom.
There you go.
Doesn't it sort of depend on the situation? I mean, like, I would feel most secure in a basement if there was, like, a tornado. Or most secure in my bathtub.
Well, tornadoes are a rare thing.
Well, it depends where you
Depends
are.
where you live.
Did you see SciShow's thing on why tornadoes hate the U.S.?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so that's like a purely, or mostly American phenomenon, are tornadoes, right? But I get what you're saying.
I would not feel most comfortable in my bed if there was, like, I don't know. I don't even know.
I didn't do that.
If there was an earthquake, I'm not just gonna, like, lie in my bed. Oh.
No, you lie under your bed.
I was on the fourth floor lab at school when that earthquake happened a while back, or what? The one I was talking about.
No.
It was
in
like
Ottawa or whatever?
no. It was
Oh.
no wait. Yeah, it was in Ottawa. Yeah, I was in the 4th lab, and it was like really.
You're talking about the
shaky.
one like 2 years ago, or the one
is-
recently?
This is recent.
Okay.
Yeah, it was shaking like crazy. You should have seen
Really?
everybody freaking out. I was like, it's just an earthquake, guys.
I didn't notice. I don't think I noticed
Well,
this most recent.
I think it's because if you're on the higher floor, you really do notice.
that makes sense.
You know, it has time to build up,
Yeah.
shake a little bit.
Hmm.
Anyway.
Shall we wrap this up? Does
I don't
anyone
know,
else
are we-
have any new things to add?
I suppose.
Zombie prevention. You can pick them off from your bedroom window.
Well, do you think
Have
that
your
has
front door
anything
locked.
to do with it? The ability to see farther, for instance, the ability to raise yourself above.
I think people just wanted bigger houses. They wanted a second floor to their house so that it would be bigger for the sake of being bigger, conspicuous
All right.
consumption.
All right. What about
And they put bedrooms up there as default.
this is like the 50s, right? You're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What about like in early America, if you had like, obviously it was a wealthier household because they could afford it,
Mm-hmm.
but even back in like, I don't know, the 1800s, it was second floor had the bedrooms, right?
Yeah,
I'm thinking of like a plantation house.
I think it's the same thing though. If you're
Is it conspicuous
plantation houses
consumption?
are harder, but by adding a second floor, you double the space that you'll have.
Right.
Not necessarily,
So,
but
all right.
like,
So, do you think it's an aesthetic thing then? If you have the extra money and you are putting something on the second floor, you want it to be your bedroom so that you can go out and look upon the fantastic view from the second floor.
No, I think it's just because everything else makes more sense on the first floor. Bedrooms, it doesn't really matter where they go.
so people are putting their comfort about it last. I mean, I can sleep on a couch in my living room, or I can sleep in my bedroom.
You could sleep in a bedroom that's behind your living room as well.
I can sleep on a floor. But here's a thought. There's often in downtown areas, there's often apartments above shops. The shops are the useful part, and the bedrooms, or rather the apartments, are where everybody's habitating.
Mm-hmm.
It's given less priority.
So, you think they're just a lower priority?
I think that's a higher. I think that's a higher contrast version of what we're seeing here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, shall we wrap up? What's your favorite theory on why bedrooms are on the top floor of buildings, Mackie?
I think it's what I initially said. Not actually. No, I think I said heat first. I think it's about how people built the houses. I think it's just convention at this point, and I think it's about how people built up their houses over time. They started with a one-room house, and they worked their way up.
Okay. Connor?
I think it's the odd man out theory, and that just everything else makes more sense to be on the first floor, so you pop the bedrooms up there.
Okay. Desiree?
I agree with that pretty much. And it'd just be good to have your bedroom away from the fires of the fireplace and in the kitchen, and I don't know, and the front door. Just all the. I think it's more about security.
I like the privacy theory that the more private things go, sort of further displaced from where you're entertaining guests and stuff like that. It's my favorite.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, isn't that interesting that we've all picked different theories?
Yeah,
That actually wasn't planned. But do you know what? Exactly 15 minutes was, because here we are.